Welcome all. When we talk about deluge and Guattari, they have not explicitly talked about technology and what are their implications when we apply delugian thought into science and technology. Though, yes, he has references, allusions, but we don't see a concrete step or a vision. As Daniel W. Smith, a very prominent author and a delugian scholar, has tried to establish in his later writings that what will happen if we apply the delugian thoughts, schizophrenia, rhizome, and prosthesis, proto-technicity, those ideas, those language in the world of science. So knowing deluge from this angle can be very revealing. I'm reading the paper Deluge, Technology and Thought, Daniel W. Smith, Purdue University. Abstract. Although Gilles Deleuze never explicitly develops what might be considered a philosophy of technology, this article nonetheless attempts to outline the rudiments of a Deleuzian approach to technology by proposing a series of interrelated concepts. Number one, prosthesis. Technological artifacts are externalized organs. Number two, proto-technicity or originary technicity, but this technicity already exists in nature all the way down and precedes any theory. Number three, exo-Darwinism, the fact that evolutionary time has bifurcated and technology evolves in a faster and accelerating time scale. Number four, despecialization or de-differentiation, what conditions the externalization of organs is their deterritorialization. Number 5, motricity, the link between the brain and the hand/mouth is primarily one of movement. Number 6, inscription or graphism, the link between mouth and hand takes place through phonetic writing when the hand reproduces speech in graphic inscriptions. Number 7, maker's knowledge. We know the organizations of matter found in nature through the organizations of matter that we ourselves have created. And finally, number 8, totipotence. Like a stem cell, the body is capable of being externalized in an almost unlimited number of forms and functions. It is itself an abstraction and the source of abstraction. Although Gilles Deleuze never explicitly develops what might be considered a philosophy of technology, he is strongly influenced by thinkers such as André Louis-Gourhan, Raymond Rouyer, and Gilbert Simondon, all of whom provide profound analysis of the nature of technicity. Moreover, works such as Capitalism and Schizophrenia are grounded in a profound concept of machinism. In what follows, I would like to offer some Deleuzian reflections on the nature of technology and more specifically on the nature of the relationship between technology and thought. Deleuze famously defines philosophy as the creation of concepts, and I would propose in a tentative manner several concepts that taken together may help lay out the rudimentary or rudiments of a Deleuzian philosophy of technology. Prosthesis, proto-technicity, exo-Darwinism, despecialization, motricity, inscription, maker's knowledge, and totipotence. Number 1, prosthesis. What is it? Speaking in general terms, technologies are prosthetic, so to speak, that is, they are extensions of the body. The German thinker Ernst Kapp, in his 1877 book Elements of a Philosophy of Technology, seems to have been the first to propound this idea of technical objects as organ projections. I can pound a stick into the ground with my fist, but I do a much better job if I use a hammer which mimics my forearm and fist. In a place of the arm, technology substitutes an external artifact that resembles the arm. With a hammer in our hand, my flesh and bones become wood and iron. like an exoskeleton. Similarly, the will externalizes the quasi spherical articulations of our hips, knees, and ankles. Clothing externalizes the skin. A baby's bottle externalizes its mother's breast. A kitchen stove is an externalization of the stomach, and so on. We have even managed to mimic the organs of other species. Airplanes mimic the wings of birds. Scuba equipment mimics the gills of fish, albeit with different means. Technology is an apparatus that has been extracted from the body, like a ship leaving port. This, it seems to me, is the basic point from which one has to start. Technology is primarily corporeal, it is derived from the body. As such, technology marks a first threshold of life. As Marshall McLuhan puts it in his subtitle of Understanding Media, technologies are the extensions of man, or in Bernard Taylor's words, as a process of externalization. Techniques is the pursuit of life by means other than life. Scientific instruments, for instance, constitute a vast sensorium spread out in a space that constitutes an externalized prosthetic body. Telescopic eyes, like the Hubble telescope or its successor, the Webb telescope, that magnify and record light on film, radio dishes as vast ears that listen to the heavenly noise. Seismographs, like vast finger and nerve endings that sense the slightest tremor in the ground, or colliders that allow us to register the effects of particular collisions, as in the recent discovery of the Higgs boson. What is sometimes called the scientific revolution took place in part because of our ability to extend our senses in such technical artifacts. Number 2, proto-technicity. But one must immediately modify this concept of prosthetics in two directions. On the one hand, the concept of prosthetics tends to presume the initial integrity of the body, which secondarily extends itself spatially. But in fact, the body itself must be comprehended in terms of its natural technicity. As Marx put it in a famous text, the greatness of Darwin was that he directed attention to the history of natural technology, that is, the formation of the organs and plans of animals, cited in Stinger 26 in his book Climbing Mount Improbable. Richard Dawkins has an intriguing chapter aptly titled The 40-Fold Path to Enlightenment, that analyzes the fact that eyes, which Darwin calls a remote sensing technology, have evolved no fewer than 40 times in the animal kingdom in accordance with 9 distinct principles. From this viewpoint, not only eyes, but eggs, exoskeletons, feathers, hair, hooves, nails, teeth, the shells of turtles, and the scales of anteaters are all forms of what we might call proto-technicity or originary technicity. This is what Deleuze and Guattari term machinism. So the idea of proto-technicity was perhaps developed more convincingly by the French philosopher Raymond Rouyer. Consider a unicellular animal such as an amoeba. It can digest food. Even though it does not have digestive organs such as stomach or intestines, it is able to react in intelligible ways to its environment. Even though it has neither a nervous system nor any sensory organs, we could thus say it thinks even though it lacks a brain. In other words, though it has neither a brain nor a nervous system nor a stomach, an amoeba can think, can digest food, and can move about intelligibly in its environment. Rouillet's conclusion is that bodily organs are themselves technical artifacts. I do not necessarily need a hammer to pound a stake into the ground, but I can do a better job if I have one. Similarly, organisms do not need a stomach to digest, or a brain to think, or a nervous system to interact with the environment, but they digest and interact better if they have specialized organ fulfilling these functions. In short, if tools are externalized projections of our organs, we would equally have to say that our bodily organs, stomach, lungs, kidneys, brain, are themselves technologies that have been created by the organism itself in the course of evolution. In Deleuze's technology, the egg is a body without organs, and organs are the artifacts that are created by the egg in the course of embryogenesis. This is why, in a provocative turn of phrase, Ruyer sometimes calls the embryo our primary consciousness. Since an embryo has a knowledge that is far vaster than the knowledge our brains have, an embryo easily and routinely creates numerous organs: brain, heart, stomach, lungs, kidneys, that the human brain is now trying to recreate artificially. Artificial hearts, dialysis, machines that replace the functionings of kidneys, artificial intelligence. But the embryo, our primary consciousness, creates these organs with a perfection that the brain, our secondary consciousness, can scarcely replicate. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche had already suggested that the most perfected form of knowledge we possess is knowledge that has been literally incorporated. It has been corporealized. It has become part of the body. This is the kind of knowledge a pianist has of a piece of music, or a basketball player has his game. The knowledge is incorporated into their body as a motor habit, muscle memory. Students today are generally proficient typists, and typing obviously requires a knowledge of the layout of the computer keyboard. But if students are asked to identify the two letters to the left and right of the letter C on their keyboard, only a few are able to answer. The knowledge has been incorporated into their body and has largely disappeared from consciousness. This is the kind of perfected primary knowledge that an embryo possesses, as opposed to the more limited secondary knowledge possessed by consciousness. Indeed, consciousness most usually intervenes when we lack knowledge. When we have to consciously look at the keyboard or double check a musical score. The kind of incorporated knowledge we have when we play an instrument or play a sport is close to the kind of perfected corporeal knowledge of an embryo, in which the conscious self-awareness of the brain does not intervene at all. So what David Smith is telling us is profound. Most of the things in our professional life which we do or rather perform does not come out of consciousness, out of awareness. It comes out of the machinic memory, muscle memory, muscle knowledge. So we perform it rather than understand it. So technicity and life interpenetrate each other. Very important. I repeat, technicity and life interpenetrate each other. If technology is an externalization of the body, we must also say that bodily organs are themselves technologies. There is a technicity that reaches all the way down to the reproductive capacities of the smallest bacteria, or it is conceptually misleading to separate the two. Mutation and selection are two mechanisms of this natural technology. Indeed, as Michel Serres has remarked, the ancient ruins of long vanished civilizations or even modern junkyards filled with the carcasses of rusting automobiles are not that different from the fossilized remains of the Cambrian period that are found in the Burgess cells in the Canadian Rockies, about which Stephen Jay Gould wrote his superb book called Wonderful Life. They are all, Serres suggests, cemeteries of externalized techniques: fossil remains, ancient ruins, modern junkyards. Now these are fascinating, if we imagine it, it finds fantastic and very gruesome at times, but yes, we are extinctions. Biology extends, and the machines, machinic and muscle knowledge that Nietzsche talks about And there are other aspects of it too. We can start with exo-Darwinism. That's a different take altogether. So we will discuss the more interesting concepts like this in our later episode. Till then, thank you.